Welcome to Teacher Gia's brand new education channel. Get ready to dive into a world of knowledge and learning. Our first video focuses on project proposal and report writing, favoring every level of learner. We'll guide you through the essentials of report writing, including structuring your reports, selecting the right language, and presenting your ideas clearly and effectively. You'll also discover techniques for analyzing data, incorporating visuals, and making your reports engaging. Join us to explore advanced strategies such as sophisticated data interpretation, strategic recommendations, and tailoring your reports to specific audiences. No matter your level, this is your opportunity to enhance your report writing skills. Hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming educational content. Let's learn and grow together. So let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to start by research methods. And a research is a systematic process of inquiring. By inquiring, we mean gathering information or data and analyzing data to increase our understanding on a problem we are trying to solve. The main goal of research is to solve a problem of interest. Research includes use of facts, theories, data analysis, and experiments. Next, we're going to discuss characteristics of a research. A research originates with a question or a problem. I mean, you've got to have a query that needs to be researched about. It also requires a clear articulation of a goal. Ask yourself, what are you trying to achieve at the end of your research? A research follows a specific plan or procedure. These are the steps to conducting a research. You have to have a formula, a plan, steps that you're going to use while conducting a research. It often divides the main problem into a sub-problem. A research is guided by specific problems, questions, or hypotheses. Accepts certain critical assumptions, requires collection and interpretation of data. While conducting a research, you need to gather information from various relevant sources. Next is aims of a research. One aim is to predict about something in the future. Something like, if you don't do this, this might happen. Another aim is to explain about solutions of problems. Research is all about solving a problem, right? The third one is to interpret to readers what is being investigated. The readers need to know your reason for conducting a particular research. The fourth one, to improve on the current existing knowledge of a problem. Ask yourself, what is there to improve on the current system that is available? A research utilizes acceptable scientific methodology to solve problems and create new knowledge that is generally acceptable. With that said, we have to learn about certain terms in research. The first one is a method. The meaning of a method is that it is a way of solving a problem. Another term is a methodology, which is the discipline of scientific procedures, e.g. SDLC or RAD, which we'll learn later. A methodology can be said to be a formal approach to conducting a research, which is a series of steps plus deliverables. Another term is a scientific method, which is an experimentation process used to explore observations and answer questions. It consists of systematic experimentation, observation, and interpretation of data. In IT or computer science, a methodology can be termed as a collection of methods, procedures, techniques, tools, and documentation that aid the researcher to do their research. Research methodology is another term that means framework, procedures, tools, and techniques used in research. It consists of phases or subphases that guide choice of methods, techniques, tools, among others, that will be appropriate for the research and also help them plan, manage, control, and evaluate progress of research. In conclusion on these terms, we can say research methods are simply techniques used to gather and analyze data for research. How do you choose a project title? A project title needs to only have 11 serious words. Another thing is that you need to mention an artifact, which is an object made by human being. It can be a model, a framework. You can talk about a school, a company, a system, something that has been made by a human being. And the last is it must include an application domain and a scope. What particular area are you talking about? Is it a county? Is it a city? Is it a state? Does it only involve girls? Education? Something of that sort. Yep. Also, before you start a research, you need to determine a well-defined problem, follow steps in methodology, and your result should be a new system or an improved system of the current version, a new knowledge that people didn't know, a new method, or a model. Next, we're going to talk about a research proposal. We're going to define it. We're going to differentiate between research proposal and a project report. And finally, we're going to talk about what each and every chapter entails from chapter 1 to chapter 5. So after identifying a research topic and you having a project title, we develop a proposal, which is a written statement of the intentions of conducting research on a specified area. Next, we're going to importance of a research proposal. The first one makes one's intentions of getting involved with research work clear. This is done by spelling out the objectives of the study. The next one is allows the researcher to plan and review the steps that should be undertaken in the project. The third one provides justification for funding. After the proposal is approved, it serves as a guide throughout the investigation. Without a problem, we cannot have a research. So we're going to talk about the problem statement format. It is made up of 3 parts. 1 is the ideal, 2 is the reality, and 3 the consequences. The ideal states the desired goal or desired situation. So I'm going to give you an example. According to university mission statement, the university must provide students with a safe and healthy environment. The dorms are an important aspect of that environment, thus should be equipped with air conditioners and spacious. Here, the ideal safe space for students should include dorms equipped with air conditioners and are spacious. So, what about the current situation? Next, you're going to talk about the reality. When we talk about the reality, it describes a condition that prevents the ideal situation from being realized. Also explains how the current situation falls short of ideal. And as always, I'm going to give you an example. The current dorms do not have AC units, and during hot seasons, it is common for room temperature to exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Many students report they are unable to do their homework well, sleep, and thus fail. Reality brings out a problem or situation that is causing the students not to have a healthy environment for learning. The third one, we're going to talk about the consequences, which states how you plan to improve the current situation to make it closer to the ideal, whereby the students can have a safe and healthy environment, thus learn and perform in their exams. For example, in response to this problem, our study proposes to investigate several options for making the dorms more hospitable. We plan to carry out an investigation into options for purchasing ACs and less expensive ways to mitigate some of this problem, such as providing better study areas. So the 3 steps provide a problem statement format. When you're writing a problem statement, you have to ensure you've stated the ideal situation, the reality, and the consequences. And I think that is clear. Next, we are in Chapter 2, Literature Review, which involves gathering knowledge from various documentation or sources on previous similar researches. Should be extensive and thorough because it is aimed at obtaining detailed knowledge of the topic being studied. Literature review is a bit long than background of the study. And next, we're going to speak about aims of literature review. It determines what has already been done in research of the problem, which helps the researcher to avoid repetition of already done tasks, form a framework of representing their work, and thirdly, on that is to demonstrate their knowledge on the topic. The second aim of literature review is that it reveals the procedures, instruments, and approaches that were useful in the previous researches, which help the researcher to avoid mistakes other researchers made, learn from other researchers' experience, and thirdly, learn to use procedures that one may have learned in theory. Next is that it helps suggest new approaches or procedures that help improve the study, familiarize the researcher with previous studies, facilitate interpretation of the results of the study, and in case of any contradiction, literature review can justify the discrepancies. It helps the researcher define the research problem better, determine new approaches, and stimulate new ideas. The researcher may be alerted to research possibilities which may have been overlooked in the recent past. Another one is that approaches that have been proved futile will be revealed through the literature review. Specific suggestions and recommendations for further research can be found by reviewing literature. It pulls together, integrates, and summarizes what is known in an area, thus helping to reveal gaps in information and areas where major questions still remain. With that being said, we're moving on to sources of literature. Sources of literature means the places where we get the data that we're going to use during the research. The first one is primary sources, which is a direct description of events by someone who witnessed them. This is first-hand information. Secondary sources means second-hand information. Publications written by an author who was not a direct observer / participant in the event described, e.g. scholarly journals, facets, ebooks, government documents, papers presented at conferences, abstracts, the internet, references quoted in books, among others. Next, we're going to talk about evaluating information sources. Researchers evaluate and select information sources based on the following 5 factors. The first one is purpose, what the author is trying to accomplish, e.g. to entertain, to enlighten, to educate, it depends. The second one is scope. Scope means how much of the topic is being covered, how deep is the research, is the material covered locally, regionally, or internationally. The third one is authority. Authors' credentials should be given both in printed and electronic sources. Audience. Who was the research done for? Directions guiding the research. Is your audience students? Is it about mothers? Is it about things like that? Format. How the information is presented. The purpose of literature review is not to provide a summary of everything that has been written on your research topic, but to review most relevant and significant research on your topic. Your review has a number of purposes. 1, to help you redefine further your research questions and objectives, to highlight research possibilities that may have been overlooked before, to discover explicit recommendations for further research, to help you to avoid simply repeating work that has been done already, and the 5th one is to provide and discover insight into research approaches, strategies, and techniques that may be to your own research questions and objectives. Content of the critical review. The things that you should note down. The review will need to explain the relation between published findings, reference where they were reported, and talk about the findings explored. It should draw out the key points and trends, present them logically, which also show the relationship to your own research. This provides readers of your research project with necessary background knowledge to your research and establish the boundaries of your own research. Steps in literature review. Be familiar with the literature before beginning the review. Make a list of keywords or phrases to guide your literature research. Go to the source literature. Analyze, organize, and report gathered findings in an orderly manner. Make an outline of the main topics and decide on the number of headlines and subheadlines required depending on how detailed the review is. Analyze each reference in terms of the outline made and establish where it will be most relevant. Cover more general parts first before narrowing down to more specific parts. Make a brief summary of the literature and its implications. General rules of citation. So here I've given the general rules of citation and examples. So you can pause the video and then you write them down. It's like self-explanatory and you'll get to understand each and every rule. The rules that I've stated here are for APA publication style. There are different other styles. You can comment down below if you need me to discuss each and every style in the next video and just let me know. So you can pause and you just write them down, you get to understand them, and we'll move on to our next topic, which is theoretical framework. This framework is used when you want to prove something other people have done, and these are what is needed. Used to identify the variables. After conducting a thorough literature survey and defining the problem, one is ready to develop a theoretical framework. A theoretical framework is a conceptual model of how one theory makes logical sense of the relationship among several factors that have been identified as important to the problem. The theoretical framework discusses the interrelationship among the variables. We'll talk about the variables later. Developing such a framework helps us to hypothesize and test certain relationship and thus to improve our understanding of the situation. From the theoretical framework, testable hypotheses can be developed to examine whether the theory formulated is valid or not. Thus, the entire research rests on the basis of theoretical framework. A good theoretical framework is central to examining the problem under investigation. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. There are two types of hypothesis. The first one is null hypothesis. It's always the positive one, written as HO. E.g., an online shopping system will result to efficiency in service delivery. The second one is alternative hypothesis. It is the negative one, written as H1, e.g., an online shopping system will not result to efficiency in service delivery. Okay, we've talked about hypothesis in theoretical framework, and now we're going to talk about variables in conceptual framework. Conceptual framework is a set of broad ideas and principles taken from relevant fields of inquiry and used to structure a subsequent presentation. It explains, either graphically or in narrative form, the main dimensions being studied or the presumed relationships among them. Is a framework showing the relationship between independent and dependent variables. Dependent variables are the main variable being investigated to the researcher, are of primary interest. What are you actually studying? Understand, describe, and explain them. E.g., efficiency. If efficiency is what you're trying to explain in a certain system, then that's the primary interest. Independent variables influence the dependent variables, e.g., faster response time in service delivery. It can be 24/7. These are the things that help to have the efficiency in the system. I think I've explained that better. Hope so. Okay, let's dive into plagiarism. Plagiarism is a practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own without crediting the source. Strategies for avoiding plagiarism. Develop your own ideas and opinions about different issues, which you can then reinforce and support with the research of other scholars. Ask and answer questions to clarify ideas. Learn to develop hypotheses around issues. You can refer to notes on theoretical framework where we talked about hypotheses. Putting forward suggestions and conclusions of your research to support ideas. The second one, know how to use other writers' voices appropriately in your assignment, e.g. by paraphrasing their information and avoid providing references, summarizing and synthesizing their information and providing references, quoting their words directly and providing references, copying their tables, graphs, diagrams, etc. and providing references. Reference your assignments correctly by using e.g. APA rules according to the instructions you're given, depending on the citation rules that you want to use. Two types are in-text and at the end paraphrasing. Take note of author, date styles, and numbering styles. Write in a way that can be differentiated from others. Separate your ideas from quoted ideas of others, and that is the way you will avoid plagiarism. So we're going to step into examples of how you should quote, paraphrase, and many more. So here, kindly take your time. You can pause the video to write down, take note of how I quoted some of the examples here, and I bet it will be of good help to you. I want to move straight to the main topic that I believe everyone has been waiting for: differences between research proposal and project report. A research proposal and a project report are two distinct documents used in the research process, serving different purposes and stages of a research project. Here are the key differences between a research proposal and a project report. The first one, we're going to talk about purpose. A research proposal is a document submitted to request approval and funding for a research project. It outlines the research problem, objectives, methodology, expected outcomes, and the significance of the study. The main purpose of a research proposal is to convince reviewers or funding agencies that their research is worth pursuing and has a well-defined plan. Whereas a research project is a comprehensive document that presents the results and findings of a completed research project. It provides a detailed account of what was done during the research, the data collected, the analysis performed, and the conclusions drawn. The primary purpose of a research project is to communicate the research outcome to a wider audience and contribute to the existing body of knowledge. The second one is stage in research process. The research proposal is typically prepared before the actual research begins. It is submitted to gain approval from relevant authorities or to secure funding for the research. The research proposal sets the foundation for the entire research project. Whereas a project report is prepared after the research has been conducted, data has been collected, and analysis has been performed. It summarizes the entire research process, starting from the research proposal and ending with the final results and conclusion. Content. Research proposal typically includes sections such as an introduction, literature review, research objectives and questions, research methodology, expected outcomes, timeline, and a budget. Take note of that kindly. A project report, whereas includes sections like an abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, data analysis, results, discussions, conclusions, recommendations, and references. Typically, a project report carries the research proposal. Audience. In research proposal, the primary audience for a research proposal includes funding agencies, research committees, and stakeholders who will evaluate the feasibility and significance of the proposed research. A project report, the audience for a project report includes peers, researchers, academics, and others interested in the study findings and potential applications. In summary, a research proposal is a document prepared before starting a research project to seek approval and funding, while a project report is prepared after completing the research to share the outcomes and findings of the study. Both documents are crucial in the research process and contribute to the success and dissemination of the research. Okay, so a project report has 5 chapters, and as we had said earlier, a project report carries the research proposal. So if you asked to do a research proposal, you're going to do chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3 only. Those are the details that should be put in a research proposal. But when you're given an assignment to do a project report, you're going to have from chapter 1 to chapter 5. So in chapter 1, we have the introduction. Chapter 2, we have the literature review. And chapter 3, we have the research methodology, which is part of the research proposal. And I repeat, the research proposal is inside a project report. Chapter 4 is system design and implementation, which carries the data analysis and interpretation. Chapter 5 carries conclusion and recommendations. So here is chapter 1 format, how it should look like or how you should present your work. You should have the background of the study, the problem statement, objectives of the study. Here you should have general objectives and specific objectives. And these you should indicate how you're going to analyze, design, implement, and test. These keywords should appear in your objectives. You should get the research questions, justification of the study, significance of the study, hypothesis or limitations of the study. All should be under chapter 1. In introduction, the introduction serves to discuss the background for the proposed research and define the problem that the proposal is attempting to address or solve. One should state objectives of research work, significance of study, justification of the study, limitations of the study. Background of the study, meant to stimulate the interest of the reader. It establishes the context of the research. A well-written introduction leads to the problem of the statement of the problem. Sorry about that. Detailed enough to make research problem emerge clearly. The background of the study should help clarify what has brought the need for the study, point out challenges faced due to the identified issue, indicate opportunities for improvement, how or what to do to overcome the challenge, demonstrate the researcher's view on the research problem, convince readers that the problem or opportunity exists and it should be addressed. Shows readers that the researcher knows the study area and he or she is familiar with what has preceded. Do not beat around the bush, straight to the point. Next is qualities of an effective background of the study. Your background of the study should not be too long, at least 3 to 4 paragraphs. Capture only what is required. It should be brief and specific. Summarize the information in literature review, list the challenges, but do not explain. Engage the interest of the reader, should not be boring, should get the reader concerned about the problem, excited about the opportunity of having the problem addressed, and interested in the solution proposed by the research. A background of the study should give the reader a glimpse of the research problem. Use a simple and straightforward language. Should be informative and persuasive. Enlighten the reader about the research problem and urgency of addressing the problem. So another question that might come up concerning research proposal and project report is that how is the background different from the literature review background of the study? So the background of the study should provide the summary of the literature review, while literature review should be more comprehensive and thoroughly describe all the studies that you have mentioned in the background section. We have the steps in writing an effective background of the study. One is reflection. Researchers should analyze the selected topic and title and identify the variable. The variable here assists in locating the relevant literature related to the research problem. So you should indicate all your variables so that they help you in knowing the certain areas or sources that you go for during the research. Brainstorming. Researchers should think about relevant literature related to the topic that brings out the need for the study, challenges related to the selected topic, and should also be reflected in the selected literature. For example, a few studies have been done to, and you continue. Material compilation. Use the library to read through books as well as journals that have been published. Not advisable to use Wikipedia. Formulation. Use the material to write the background and literature review, and also cite previous studies that are similar to what you are proposing. Next, we're going to 1.2, which is statement of the problem. Should be at least 2 paragraphs, one for the problem and one for the solution. I think that is straight to the point. Once the topic is clear, isolate the problem and then proceed to attempt to find a solution to the problem. Needs to convince the reader to continue reading your proposal. It should capture the reader's attention by stating the problem clearly, its background, consequences, and the resulting research questions. Previously, discussing about the problem, we talked about the ideal, the reality, and the consequences. Go back and review the notes that I had given earlier. Okay. Where are we? Okay. Statement of the problem should be brief and to the point. The reader should know the problem, its significance, and why something should be done to change it. Most critical part of the study, because without a problem, there is no study. Should refer to an issue or concern that puzzles the researcher, hence should show that a gap exists between the current system and what the researcher is proposing to do. If you don't do this, this will happen. Qualities of an effective research problem. One is that a problem should be stated clearly. Researcher made aware that there is a definite issue that needs to be solved, that his problem should stand out clearly and easily recognized, should have an impact on the whole topic being investigated, and should indicate the urgency of the research and show that the research is definitely needed. We'll move to steps in writing effective statement of the problem. One is reflection. What kind of problem a researcher wants to solve? Write down some ideas you have been debating based on selected topic. Identification. Should attempt to answer. Is there something wrong or disturbing about the current system? Are the people using the system disturbed as well? Why is this a problem? Formulation. Explain why this is a problem and how it affects organization and people. Justification. After stating the problem, explain briefly the consequences of not addressing the problem. Parameters of a good research problem should be within the researcher's area of specialization, must contribute to the body of knowledge, must be real and solutions needed, must make a significant contribution to the profession, must be sufficient to justify the effort, time, and resources needed. Objectives of the study, that is 1.3. These are aims or goals to be achieved by the research project / report. Helps researcher to keep to the scope of the study by defining the area of knowledge that the researcher is focusing on. It addresses the purpose of the investigation. Should flow naturally from the problem statement, giving the reader concrete and achievable goals. Should be stated clearly and must be testable. Should be specific. Objectives are important because they determine the research questions to be asked, e.g., to implement the blah blah blah. You can say to implement the system to a specific blah blah blah. And now your research question should be, how will the online system be implemented? Something of that sort. They go hand in hand. Another importance of objectives that they determine data collection and analysis procedures to be used, is the basis for judging the remainder of the proposal and the final project, verifies the consistency of the proposal by checking to see that each objective is discussed in the research design, data analysis, and result section. Must be SMART to mean specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound objectives. Specific objectives constitute the means by which the goal of the study should be achieved, what the researcher will do in the study, or tasks to be carried out to accomplish the aims of the study. Importance of objectives: it guides decisions, influence all components of the research design, data analysis, and report writing, limits the scope of the literature review by assisting the researcher to be precise about what to accomplish, and it clarifies the variables of this study. Another part is research questions, which go hand in hand with the objectives. Objectives rephrased in question form exactly. These are the issues that the researchers seek to answer related to the objectives. How will the system be used to do this and this? That's straight to the point. Justification of the study is only one paragraph. The why answers the questions. Why the study now? What is prompting this current study? Why are you doing the research? What problem or issue have you identified and are you going to explore in one paragraph only? Significance of the study outlines the importance of the issue being studied, the gaps in knowledge that you are contributing, who will benefit from the research, and that is the various stakeholders, e.g. the government, the community. You write the significance. Limitations of the study indicates the challenges anticipated or faced by the researcher. These include time, e.g. due to limited time, I was able to only capture this and this related to only girls in need, or early pregnancies in blah, 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 things of that sort. And financial constraints that influence the scope of the study. Data inaccessibility, e.g. data inbounds are hard to obtain, so I did this and this. You explain in the limitations and anticipated occurrence. We move to chapter 3. Okay, so one thing we should note that in chapter 120, we're going to use partly present tense. Research methodology describes the approach the researcher intends to take in order to address the research problem. This should cover research design, the target population, sampling strategy, data collection tools and techniques, and data analysis. Research design covers how you intend to collect and analyze data. It is the plan according to which research participants are chosen, information is collected, and data is analyzed. It is a master plan of framework specifying the objective, the procedures, and methods for collecting and analyzing data. Classification of research design. It's classified into two. That's the qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitative research seeks to answer questions about why and how people behave in the way they do. Let me sip some water. Provides in-depth information about human behavior. It does not involve numbers, often involves words or language. It's useful in exploring how and why things happen. Quantitative research, on the other hand, is used to explain phenomena by collecting numerical data that are analyzed mathematically based on statistical methods. Further research designs can be divided into 5 types. We have descriptive research design. It is the process of collecting data in order to test, prove a hypothesis, or to answer questions concerning the current status of the subject in the study. Experimental research design. used to establish a relationship between the cause and the effect of a situation. Any research conducted with a scientific approach examines the effects of independent and dependent variables. Correlation research design used to explore the relationship between variables, e.g., performance and motivation. How are they related? How is motivation affecting performance in students? Something of that sort. Diagnostic research design. The researcher is inclined towards evaluating the root cause of a specific topic, used to determine the frequency with which something occurs or its association with something else. E.g., what is the main root cause of girls in Texas not performing well? Exploratory research design, useful when researchers lack a clear idea of the problems they wish to study. Researchers develop concepts more clearly, emphasizing on discovery of ideas and insights. So basically, that's all about research design, different types. You should go deep into researching more about them so that you know which one you want to pick and you'll use on your research project or research proposal or writing it for your supervisor or the person in charge. Next is target population. Who is your target population? E.g., is it for only ladies, for the whole country, or for a specific county? Sampling strategy is a process of selecting respondents who should be representative of the total population. The selected respondents constitute what is called a sample, and the selection process is known as the sampling technique. Here are the reasons for sampling. Reduces the time of a study, reduces research costs, e.g., printing 3,000 questionnaires times even $0.1 can be too expensive for a student. So it reduces research costs when only a selected section of people are taken to take part in the research. Allows for better supervision and collection, e.g., getting back responded questionnaires is easy. Produces more accurate results, represents the entire population which is not accessible. Next is a sample design. There are two major ways. It can be a probabilistic method or a non-probabilistic method. Probabilistic sampling method involves every item in the universe has an equal chance of inclusion in the sample where the chosen people will have the same composition and characteristic of the universe. Majorly, and the most common one is random sampling. Types of probabilistic sampling techniques. We have random sampling, as I had said, refers to a sample where everyone has an equal probability of being picked up and each item has an equal chance of being included in the sampling. Stratified random sampling involves splitting subjects into mutually exclusive groups and then using simple random sampling to choose methods from the group. Systematic sampling, choosing every nth participant from the group. E.g., a researcher can say every 10th person who is listed is the one who will take part in the research. Cluster random sampling is picking areas. If the total area of interest is big, a convenient way to determine the area to divide the area into smaller non-overlapping areas and then randomly select a number of these smaller areas called clusters. Multi-stage sampling, it uses a combination of the above techniques. Like you can mix all the techniques. We move to non-probabilistic sample method or sampling method. The researcher selects a sample based on the subjective judgment of the researcher rather than random selection. Not everyone has an equal chance of being chosen, and it can be biased. Types of non-probability sampling techniques. We have snowball sampling. The researcher picks an initial sample of respondents, which grows bigger and bigger when the researcher is referred to other respondents. Used in hidden studies such as abortions and prostitution, etc. Quarter sampling helps the researcher in dividing the population into groups, then the actual selection of respondents is left to the interviewer's decision. Purposive or judgmental sampling. The researcher selects a subgroup that can be judged to be a representative of the population based on his knowledge and credibility, e.g. picking a county to represent all counties in a state. Convenience sampling. The researcher selects respondents who are close to him. This is used when you want to save time, money, and effort. Data collection tools and techniques. Describes the method of gathering data, that is, description of the instruments to be used, e.g. interviews or questionnaires. Next and final part of chapter 3, we have the data analysis. Summarizes the methods used to analyze data. Should describe all statistical analyses that should be done to the data as well as other qualitative information. So guys, we're in the final 2 chapters, and the next chapter is chapter 4, which is the data analysis and findings or interpretation. This chapter uses past tense because you've already done the research. It is also referred to as report writing in research. This is now you're reporting whatever you've researched about. All the data that you've collected, all the analysis is going to be done here. Research reports must contain the following. 1 is findings, then analysis, interpretation, conclusion, and recommendation. The objective of this chapter is to explain data and interpret it. Quantitative data can be presented in the form of charts or graphics. Has the following sections. 4.1, Introduction. Must describe the problem and questions being addressed by the researcher. Show how objectives were met in paragraph form. You have to show each and every objectives that you wrote down if you've met them. Data analysis 4.2. What data did you use to address the questions and how did you do it? E.g., we collected data using this and this. 4.3 Results. Tell us, present your results in the form of tables, graphs, and figures. All of them must be labeled and refer to them in your text by their labels where you discuss them. E.g., table 4.1 shows the mean score of this and this. And finally, chapter 5, conclusion and recommendations. This chapter covers summary, conclusions, and recommendations. The summary is a brief statement of the essential findings. The conclusion sums up the key points of your discussion and the significant outcome of your investigation. The recommendation. In academic research, there are often further study suggestions known as suggested areas of study. This means that your research is not conclusive. Your limitations and scope may show that you did not cover all the necessary areas to make your research conclusive. This necessitates that you suggest areas where other researchers can do research to supplement your research. E.g., because of time constraint, I only did for New York City, others can do for other cities. And we have come to the end of writing a research proposal and project report. I hope you've understood. Research proposal entails chapter 1, chapter 2 up to chapter 3, and the research project covers from chapter 1 up to chapter 5. I wish you all the best, and I hope this will help you write a good research proposal and a project report. If you have any questions, kindly comment down below or email me at emailschajia@gmail.com, and I'll get to help you in any way that you need. And you can also comment on any topic that I've discussed that you want in-depth explanation so that I can do a video of that. Thank you for coming this far with me. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And see you in the next video. Bye and take care.